Welcome to the Chicago Money Show. We help you get informed, feel engaged, and have fun with your finances. I'm your host, Bridget Sullivan Mermel, and I own a fee-only financial planning practice in Chicago. If you want more money, more meaning, and more happiness, the good news is that they're all available to you, and it doesn't even have to be that hard to get them. Thursday, October 20th is World Values Day. We're celebrating this day on this show by talking through what research tells us about how to use money to live a more happy and meaningful life. We'll be talking more about money, meaning, and happiness in upcoming episodes. Today, we're going to focus on figuring out your values and how to get more meaning and happiness by using your values when you spend. Most of us spend money every day, so this information can be immediately applicable to your life. And we're taking your calls. Please call us at the number on the screen with questions. I've got 10 questions about money and values and meaning and happiness, and I want to make sure I get through all 10. So we've got a lot to get to, so let's get going. Question 1. This is from a viewer. What's in it for me? Okay, watching other people, I think I'm reasonably happy, but other people seem happier. How can I get more of that? And it turns out that meaning and happiness are closely related and can be cultivated. You can learn how to have more meaning and happiness, just like you can learn how to have more money. I like all three. After researching this for quite a while, I found a really simple formula for bringing more meaning to life. Here's a formula. Value plus goal equals meaning. And by meaning, I mean that feeling of resonance that it's hitting the spot. Because I want more meaning, if I know my values, I can back into it. And so knowing what my values are is a shortcut to getting more meaning, and I love shortcuts. Okay, question 2. How do you figure out your values? What's the shortcut? Okay. So the old-fashioned way is to do a lot of soul searching. Make a reservation on a mountaintop, one friend of mine put it. There's a researcher that I'm really impressed with who seems to have made it their life's work to identify values that appear across cultures. So that means that people in over 50 countries have identified these same concepts. In some countries, there's more of one value than in other countries, but in every country, all of these values are significantly significant. So for instance, in the US, independence is a commonly held value. In Asian countries, conformity is more a commonly held value. But in both situations, people in both countries have, again, statistically significant numbers that they have that value. I think for a lot of people, that's pretty intuitive. So he's got a values survey. I'm going to show it here. And there's a link to it on my website, which is sullivanmermel.com. It takes, they've tested it extensively. It takes 5 to 8 minutes to fill out, and boom, you've got one key to the formula in getting more meaning in your life. I think on this side, there's each major category, and then under the major category, there's the kind of subcategories. So for instance, let's take hedonism. Why not? Hedonism, it can get kind of a bad rap because of some of the salacious implications, but the way they define it is gratification of desires, enjoyment in life, and self-indulgence. And we all know people that have that. That's really what they're looking at. Enjoyment in life, it's been surprising to me how many people that's their number one value. So hedonism is an interesting one because it's not as self-obvious as some of the other ones. Another one is benevolence, helpfulness, honesty, forgiveness, loyalty, responsibility. Okay, so all of us probably know some people who they just exude it. And so that's an easy one. Okay, so it's important to see what all of the values are so that you can figure out what yours are. All of the values sound good on their own. or at least somewhat appealing. And so that can actually, that's one of the things that make life difficult when we're making decisions, is because, believe me, marketers understand and politicians understand the underlying values. And so they can use to appeal to your values, but they can appeal to values, but they might not be exactly your value, but they still sound pretty good. So, for instance, benevolence, helpfulness, honesty, forgiveness, loyalty, responsibility. I mean, I think all of us think all of those are good characteristics. And indeed, benevolence is really the most admired value. But that doesn't mean that's your number one, or that. And they might seem like your number one if that's all you're seeing. But if you see the whole list, like I said, you want to look at the whole list, then it really helps you sort out, okay, what's the biggest things? It's like gemstones. They all look, you go to a gem shop, they all look good on their own, or a rock shop. Each one individually, it's like, oh, I like that one, I like that one, I like that one. So you have to have them all together when you're making decisions to figure out which ones you actually want. So what we have the clients do is have them fill this out, follow the instructions, and figure out what your top 3 are out of these 10. And then we have people look at their top 3 categories and then say, do any of these words particularly resonate, and flag those words. So for instance, one of my second most personally is universalism, and the different words attached to that are broad-mindedness, beauty of nature and arts, social justice, world of peace, equality, wisdom, unity with nature, and environmental protection. And for me, I like all of that, but unity with nature and environmental protection, they seem to be stuff like that I don't really know why, but I do, like recycling. Why do I care so much about that? I don't really know why. I can't explain it, but I do. It's important. So I like to know what those subcategories are for people too. So that's another thing that's kind of a bonus round after you have your top 3. So that's one of the things that I like about this particular version of the Schwartz information and the Schwartz survey, is that there's no mystery to it. There's no black box behind it. It's all in front of you. Sometimes I take Cosmo quizzes or what have you on the internet, and it's like, how are they coming up with this? It ends up feeling like a horoscope. But this, you can really see the logic of it, and for me, it makes intuitive sense. So let's take some examples here. First, I'll talk about my own results. Okay, so here's, and then I might get into somebody I work with, but I think I might get into that a little bit later in the show. So my results, my number 1 is self-direction, creativity, and independence, and choosing one's own goals are my main things that I like. I already talked about universalism. And then my 3rd is conformity, which I'll talk a little bit about later. Okay, question 3. How does this help me? Just talking about your values makes you feel happier. So, and research actually supports that. Just talking about it makes you feel happier. You don't have to do anything, but just talking about your values, and boom, you get a happiness increase. All right, question 4. What does this have to do with money? Okay, acting on your values also makes you feel happier whether you talk about them or not. But you can, acting on your values helps you make you feel better whether you talk about them or not. And you might be the silent type who doesn't talk about your values or anything like that. But we interact with the world, we act with money almost every day. And so if we've got our top 3 values in hand, it gives us a different way of acting when we're spending our money, so that we can do it more consciously. So, so talking and acting on your values increases your happiness. So talking and acting increases your happiness even more than just one or the other. This is why I love money. I guess one reason I love money, it gives me a way to act on my values, whether I talk about them or not. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're spending money on with that value and happiness in mind. Okay. Question 5 that I got is, how did I get interested in this? Okay, so this is a question for me. I mean, who even knew about World Values Day? Hallmark hasn't produced a card about it yet, right? So the answer is that my niece, when she was in 4th grade, her class had a genius hour every week. And during that week, the students could work on whatever interested them, and they had to come up with a project and get approval from and guidance, but they could work on whatever they wanted to work on for an hour a week. And I realized, wow, my genius hour is really understanding how to feel more meaning in your life. And I can be kind of emotionally dense, but I thought other people seem happier than I am. I want some more of happiness too. And as a financial planner, I've thought it's a shame that people feel that money and happiness and meaning are at odds with each other. And I'm interested in bringing them together instead of having them at odds. Okay. Question 6. What about different values? Okay. So when you see all of the values, you might not like some. So for me, for instance, one of my 3rd value really is conformity. And I wish that I didn't have conformity as one of mine, but that is one of mine. Okay, so I'm going to show another thing too. So when Schwartz did this research, he put everything on a wheel, okay? And all the different values are associated here. And so I'm going to, so conformity is over here, and self-reflection is here. So you can see there, anything that's on the opposite side, and the more opposite side they are, the more tension there can be with them. And so, for instance, so with self-direction and conformity, there can be some tension there, anything on the opposite side. Another good example is universalism, which includes like the environment and power. There's often natural tension there. Okay. So next question. So we've gone over the different values. All right. So let's get back to how do values impact buying a house? Okay, so let's look at our different values and say, and I think they might even be showing on the screen now, and say, okay, if I have different values, how might that play out if I'm conscious about it when I'm buying a house? Okay, so let's say my value is universalism, and we've talked about that a little bit, and I value the environment. Okay, so if I value the environment, I might want to be more in an area like by the river or by the lake, where I can be closer to the environment and it's easier for me to access. If I'm somebody that values achievement or power, I might want to live in a fancy building that kind of telegraphs that. One time I took a tour through a mansion in Lincoln Park, and it was an old mansion, and they had a ballroom on a whole floor was a ballroom. And it really impresses me that they were really trying to telegraph their success and power and have a place they probably valued bringing people together too. So it was a place where, I mean, really, maybe they were showing off or whatever, but still they valued that. That was awesome. Another thing that people can value a lot when they're buying a house, if they value security. So that might mean having a security system, or that might mean living in a place they feel like is more secure. And it looks like we've got a caller. So caller, if you will tell us what your name, your first name, your neighborhood you're calling from, and then go ahead with your question.
Hi, Bridget. Good show. This is Rob calling from the Gold Coast. And I was just wondering, how do my values affect investing?
Oh.
Is there anything you could recommend about values in investing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's something we could probably dedicate an entire show to. But when we look at investing and we look at the different values that you might have, so for instance, a lot of times there's an entire movement in the industry for socially responsible investing, and that really appeals to people who are that the socially responsible investing generally appeals to people with an environmental bent, and the different environmental and social and governance funds actually focus on those three things, and you can buy funds that help in those areas. Right now, the funds that focus on environmental and governance have they're more well developed than the funds that that focus on social issues. But if you're interested in those things, right now there's investing that focuses on those specifically. Security is an interesting issue because a lot of times as people get older, they value security more because they have a shorter timeline to make up for any ups and downs of the market or any mistakes they might make. And so then they tend to like to invest in bonds and CDs more. We still like to have some part of their investments in mutual funds like that have stocks in them. But as people get older, they tend to like investing more in conservative things. And then people who just have that natural value of security, sometimes they have to be coaxed into investing in the stock market because if they, although I have experienced clients who are like, I don't want to take any risk. I'll adjust my lifestyle. I don't want my money to go down. Okay. The next question I've got, question 7. How do values, back to question 7, back to the house question. We got another one before that. So, one of the issues with it is, so if your value is self-direction and you're buying a house, you might want to have things that help you be independent. I had a situation with some people that I know, and they were talking about, should we buy a new house? Our dog is having problems getting up the stairs. And they were not people who wanted to telegraph wealth. They had enough, but one of their major goals and values was really being able to be independent, and they really valued self-direction. But that wasn't the job situation for one of the people at that point. And so when they were thinking about okay, should we buy a house or not, it was more of an issue with how are we going to allocate our money so that we have enough for this value of independence and being able to do what we want. And so if we buy a new house, then we're going to tie up a whole bunch of money and be paying more, and it's going to be putting off our goal of being independent and being able to extract ourselves from a job situation that might be a little less than ideal. And so that was a very clear question when I got a question that I didn't really know how to answer. I took out the values. And I said, okay, let's take a look at your values. Because what happens as an advisor is that I can try to give people advice, but it's according to my values. It's not according to their values. And I want to give people advice that's really what they want. I mean, it's nice if it's the same as what I want, but I want to be able to, so if it's a house question, it's like, no, I want to be able to help them, not in my interest, but help them understand what they want better, and be able to explain that to them. Okay. All right, next question. How do values impact your job or career? This is question 9, actually. Okay, so as we're going along in our jobs, a lot of times we can be working very hard. David Brooks calls this like the first mountain, to just get a certain amount of competence going and make a certain amount of money. And the researchers, and these guys actually are very well thought of, found that the happiness when you're making more money goes up very fast at first, and then kind of levels off. Okay, and it keeps going up, kind of as you make more, but not that fast, because the way that I look at it is you're getting once you have your basic needs met, it's going up fast. But then after that, it doesn't really, then you're just really making trade-offs. So once you've got food, clothing, shelter, and your health care squared away, after that, you're trying to decide about, like, if you're trying to figure out vacations or something like that, it just doesn't have the same impact as getting your basic needs met. Okay, and what they found is that curve goes up, and this was in 2012, goes up to about 40,000 or 45,000 if you're single, and 75 or about 75,000 if you're supporting a family. So these numbers, I don't know, to some people this seems high, but then to other people that seems low. So like, you want to work hard to get up to that, even if with inflation, let's say $50,000 a year if you're single, probably 90 if you're supporting a family. Like, figure out how to get the skills to get to that, and then start taking a look. Okay, now let's start figuring out how to get more aligned to make sure that I'm as happy and have as much resonance that comes from meaning in my life as possible. And because sometimes people get it wrong, they think, okay, money is going to make me happy. And it's like, well, it'll help a bit up to a point. But then after that, it doesn't really help that much. And you can really get more bang for your buck by focusing on your values, for instance. Okay, so let's take an example here. One example I have is people where I know someone who is a financial planner. And after working in financial planning for a bit, okay, they went back to teaching. Now it sounds like I've got another caller. Okay, so caller, I want you to give me your first name and the neighborhood you're calling from, and then go ahead with the question.
Hi, yeah, my name's Andrea. I'm calling in from Humboldt Park. I guess my question is, like, when it comes to these value things, sometimes it's hard for me to not associate any of those, like, needs being met as just money. If you know what I mean. I feel like getting those needs met or having goals, like, it's hard for me to vision that without having financial money to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. So I guess my question is, like, can you achieve these goals or figure out what your values are and not feel like you have to have $100,000 in your bank account in order to, like, achieve them?
Yeah, that's a great question, isn't it? Right? And that's really what I'm interested in too, honestly, is like, how do you, like, so it seems like, so for instance, one question is like, how to get your goals without, and let's assume that one of your goals is retirement, like you want to retire at some point. And so how do you figure out your goals and saving for retirement? And we know, I mean, I've said this on this program and other people have said it too, is like you said, should save 10% of your income, right? And so you might be feeling like, okay, how can I make sure that I get that covered so that eventually I'll be okay, but then cover all my expenses? And so then you just like look at your expenses and say, again, am I making enough? And maybe I'm not making enough and I need to focus on how to figure out how to make more at my same job or increase my skills, etc., so that I can get another job so that I can make more. And then the other question is, okay, let's assume that I'm making enough, then, and I can save 10%, then having other goals that are more short term that can help you feel more meaning in a closer range. Because like a 1-year goal is going to be easier for you to accomplish, obviously, than like saving for retirement. I mean, that can seem like whatever you put in now is a drop in the bucket and it's never going to happen. And then, after it takes a long time for you to feel like the payoff for that. So shorter term goals that have shorter term payoffs are great. So for instance, one of the things that I did personally, and this didn't take any money, was I saw that what my goals were, and I'm like, I particularly like trees. And so I said, I got involved in trees in my neighborhood, and we planted trees, and now I'm watering trees. And then, there was more trees in my and that actually gives me more meaning and enjoyment than most of the other things that I do. And again, it's just because it's like resonates with my who I am and my underlying values. That's why it really resonates. I try other stuff. I've donated my time in doing a lot of different things, but that really hits the spot better. And so I think that, and that was free. So I mean, there was if you have some money and you want to donate, they would take it. But that's an example of how to feel more meaning and not have it be, it's just a way to choose to use your time, but it's more meaning, it brings more meaning and happiness. Okay, great. Next question, what's that shortcut again? Okay, so that shortcut again is values. So again, where's my values sheet? Here's the quiz, or here's this, plus a goal equals meaning. And again, this has been researched so that they have figured this out. And I think, to some people, it's obvious. So it just depends on who you are. I can be, again, a little dense. And so getting formula helps me because I'm like, oh, okay, let me give this a try. And again, it's what's a value plus a goal equals meaning. And I can tell you that it's really helped me, and it's helped clients. Viewers, I want to thank you again. Because I like to conform, sometimes I just say what all the other financial talking heads are saying. And in the financial industry, a lot of financial planning is driven by research. But my colleagues have been slower to look at the wealth of research out there about how to find more happiness and meaning in your life and apply it to your finances. I'm really grateful to CanTV Channel 27 for giving me a space to openly talk about these ideas. And I really wish you a happy World Values Day. My name is Bridget Sullivan Mermel, and I own a family financial planning firm. Check out the show's website at chicagomoneyshow.com. There you can see our earlier episodes and find a link to the Schwartz Short Survey. You can sign up for our newsletter and get a heads up for upcoming shows. Thanks again for watching.